Like that's one of the things with style. A lot of people see a style from someone that they like and they want to take that person's style. But what's behind that person's style is years and years of tinkering and playing with it and knowing fundamentals and basics. And if you look at someone's work that's super stylized, if you were to do like a construction drawing over it, everything is there. I mean, they might just bang it out really quick, but there's like years of knowledge underneath it.
It is Wednesday. It actually is Wednesday. We're recording on a Wednesday, and we're going to release this on a Wednesday. So this is awesome. If you didn't know, through the magic of editing and the internet, we actually record these podcasts a little bit earlier than they get released, so that we can always stay on top and keep things fresh for you guys. And today we are talking to Jesse Aclin. Before we get into that, I want to announce where people can find the show notes. So if they're listening to this, they can go through, and any links that we mentioned, they can click on them. So that'll be at pencilkings.com/Jesse Aclin. That's JESSE-ACLIN. How are you doing this morning, Jesse?
Hey, Mitch, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm stiff, man. I've been working out. I've been trying to get, I have the grand dream of having a beach body. I don't know if it'll ever happen in my lifetime, but I would love it to happen. And so I'm trying to stick with the program, but I'm stiff. And where are you calling in from today?
Sunny LA.
Oh, cool. Your profile said you were in New York, I think. So have you always been in LA?
No, I've only been out here for the last, I want to say like a year and 3 months or something.
Ooh, yeah. So you're pretty new to LA.
Pretty new, so I should work on my beach body too. I'm close. It's like considered like the city of Los Angeles. I live in Silver Lake, a little like, I don't know, subdivision of LA, I guess. Pretty cool neighborhood. I
lived in LA for 2 years and I didn't have a car.
That is crazy.
I was listening to music one day, and there was this song, Nobody Walks in LA, Only a Nobody Walks in LA. And I felt like they were singing that song to me, that I was a nobody because I just had my bike. And I would go on dates, and then girls would be like, all right, cool, the date's over. Where's your car? I'd be like, oh, I'm taking a taxi. And they'd be like, what? You're taking a taxi? What are you doing? Why are you so crazy? Let me drive you home. Nothing ever great happened because of that, but I always ended up hitching a ride with these girls because they felt sorry for me, which I don't think is the power position when you're on a date. But We're not here to talk about dating in LA. We're here to talk about your art. And I'm excited because I know there's a lot of people inside the community and they're interested in style. And I feel like you've got a very distinct style. So how do you describe your art? And I'm referring to the art that I see at jesseaclin.daportfolio.com.
Okay. Oh, boy. I just try to do things that I enjoy, are fun, and honestly that like I don't see a lot of. I think there's something cool about saying like, what haven't I seen before? Like, what would I like to see? And I guess when I say that, maybe I'm thinking about like on screen or just in sketch form or in illustration form. I get paid during the day to do art, which is awesome. But like, when I'm doing my own thing, kind of just like a kid, like what do I want to see?
Just to make it tangible, I want to describe your style as sketchy, but I feel like sketchy doesn't do it any justice. There must be more behind it. So knowing that I'm going to say sketchy, what do you say to that?
That's cool. I like that. When I was coming up, and I guess I'd say developing my style, even though I never concentrated on like quote unquote developing a style, I think that can actually hinder a lot of artists. But as I was working every day, a lot of times if I applied to a job or doing work for people, they would tell me that it's too sketchy. But I like the sketchiness of it and the energy that you get and the life you get from that. So what I kind of figured out is that you have to make it sketchy, but like able to be interpreted. So there's like a level where it's like, I totally get what you're doing, and I love that it's sketchy and full of life, but it's not like taking away from the design, if that makes any sense.
I don't know if it does. I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think, how do you know when something is interpretive or not? Could you just start by explaining interpretive?
Okay. When I wasn't quite comfortable with a style or developing a style, I've done freelance for a lot of years for like a lot of different places, a lot of different types of jobs. And one thing I would find is like, some of the most fun part usually can be the blue sky phase when they're like, hey, let's say like we've got a commercial and there's like these T-Rexes and they're, stealing candy from a baby, which is wrong. You shouldn't steal candy from a baby. But and then so they're like, what could these T-Rexes look like? It's pretty much open, just do it like whatever you think would be cool. So you go into this blue sky phase where you're just like, man, I want to see one with like little eyes, big head. Like you're just playing around with proportions and shapes and all this different stuff, trying to get like the most fun approach you can. And I like to do that really fast and get a lot of stuff down quick. So I can it's almost like exercising, like getting all the ideas out of your head. And like for me, I have to do that quickly, and that way I can get a good variation. So I know what works, what doesn't work, and everything like that. But then when you hand those designs over, you still want them to have that initial spark of inspiration, but you want the client to be able to say like, I want to choose, B or C. I like that one. And then when it comes back to you, also there's enough information there that you can take it to the next level. Because if there's not, then the client doesn't know what he chose, and you almost don't know what he chose or what to go off of that he liked. So it's kind of like developing a shorthand that's complete enough, but also still with enough energy.
Yeah. So when you're initially drawing and coming up with concepts and ideas, you draw really fast and you just let the creativity fly and try and have as much energy in the drawing as you can.
Yeah.
However, you want to take it to a point where if you had to continue on with that particular drawing, you know where to take it, because you might be drawing like 50 different things. And so if you leave it too loose, when you come back to it, you're sort of like, ooh, I'm not really sure where I was going to go with this one.
Or you might not even like it yourself. That's happened to me before.
Yeah.
Oh, the sketch looked good, but what's actually there is not that good, like the underlying proportions and shapes and all that stuff.
Once you had the realization that you needed to take it to this level where you could interpret it and the client could interpret it, did things all of a sudden get a lot easier then because people were saying that you were too sketchy before that?
It's a big learning process, from working with clients when you're very young to getting older and realizing sometimes like, why are the designs not looking as good as I initially wanted them to? And it's like kind of just realizing like, how do I kind of keep the integrity from beginning to end? Like they always say designs get watered down, and I think that's because people like do things that they know or that are safe, and I think B is also because it's like you're not kind of exploring enough and finding all the possibilities.
I know that in our community, there's a lot of people that are interested specifically in sketching. And so to see you take sketching to a professional level, and I feel like saying the word sketching isn't doing it justice because there's so much thought that goes behind it, but that's the only word that I can think of right now. Yeah. But I feel like it's something that people could aspire to that's not as daunting as, we were just talking before about when something is highly rendered and it's very realistic. Like I just don't feel very much motivation to move towards something like that. Yeah. But when I see your work, I feel super motivated. I'm like, wow, these are just like super fun. Look at these samurais; they're so goofy, and they're look at all their armor. And I'm gonna try drawing my own samurais now. And there's something about that I really love.
Yeah, that's like the biggest compliment. It's like when I look at art that I love, I almost have to put the book down after like flipping one page because I just have to start thinking something is simpler. Like, a lot of the artists we love as kids and even today, it's like sometimes you kind of say like, oh, I can do that. And I don't think that's an insult. I think that's almost like also saying that you're inspired to do that, not just that like, oh, I could do that. You know what I mean?
As artists, I feel like one of the most important things that we strive to do, and that I've never been able to verbalize before or realize, is that we want our work to inspire other people.
Oh, yeah.
We want our work for somebody to look at it and say like, wow, I really like how you did this thing. Even if what you did is unintentional, they still see something. They might see a lot more in it than you do when you're creating it.
Yeah.
But this is really the core. This is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't go to art school. I didn't go to school for animation. So I just learned by looking at other like animation artists or people in the industry and inspired by them. And then if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't be here.
Okay, so I still want to talk about this style and I feel like if you're listening, go and check this out, jesseaclin.daportfolio.com or just look up Jesse Aclin and you can find him on Tumblr.
Yeah.
for you as a creator and this being your style, like what are some of the things that you consider? You already mentioned that you're trying to think of things that you haven't seen before and to create something new. But I feel like, for example, I'm looking at the samurai. Oh, it's just three warriors. I think one's a samurai, maybe one's a Mongol, maybe, and one's a Crusades era kind of a Roman.
Yeah,
maybe?
kind of like a mashup type thing.
Yeah, so like for this particular piece, obviously they've got skinny little legs, long arms, their body proportions are stylized. But like, what are some of the other design choices or themes, or how are you approaching these, or does it just come out as like blah? You just do your thing and that's it. There's not a whole lot of thinking in it.
That's kind of one of the reasons it's a little hard to explain, because sometimes there isn't a lot of thinking. Sometimes there is, like day job stuff, a lot of thinking. Again, I think I do stuff like this as kind of like an escape a bit from the day job. Take some of the chances that you can't necessarily take at like a larger studio. I'm just thinking. I think one of the key words again is fun. I'm just trying to think of fun design. Fun, playful stuff. Again, like I haven't seen. I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm like the most original person in the world, but like I strive to be original. There's a lot of artists out there. There's a lot of amazing artists. This kind of goes back to a question you had before. Like sometimes people swarm to like a particular style or way of finishing drawings or whatever, and it's like it's again like as long as you kind of communicate the idea, like you pretty much the way you're describing these drawings, you're having fun looking at them. You want to draw them, or you want to draw something like that. That's like that's a good thing to get out of it, because that's kind of what I guess I wanted.
So do people find you for this style and then they hire you? Or we haven't even gotten into what you do for your day job. Maybe you can explain that a little bit, and then we can start. I can backtrack with my questions and how it leads from this style, because it seems like just from what you've said so far that there's a difference, and there's more thinking and there's more planning for what you do for your day job than there is for what I've been talking about and what I'm feeling inspired about in your blog. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing for work.
Okay. So I work for Paramount Animation. It's a pretty new division, and I work in development. So we kind of take early ideas and kind of try to see them through to a point where we can pitch them, and then eventually make a movie out of them. And it's awesome. It's what I've always it's what I wanted to do. But the good and bad thing about full-time jobs, no matter what studio you're working at, is that they're not completely fulfilling. I'm saying that in the best possible way, because imagine if you were completely fulfilled at work. You just come home and eat some chips and chill on the couch, right? But you still have like ideas in your head like all day that you want to get out, and you're like, not for this project. Like, let's say maybe the tone is too realistic, right? So like I couldn't do a lot of these really like push shapes and funny proportions or whatever. Let's say if the movie is closer to like almost like a live action type thing, And you have to be very mindful of that. I can't just push my style on everything. What I want to do is keep true to what I do and what I like keep my tastes in all the work that I do. Like even if I'm, let's say like I'm drawing like almost like a Simpsons type style, like maybe that's what's called for the project, or that's what they asked for. It's like, of course you have to do that. They hired you because they like what you do, but then they kind of ask you to do other things. But a big struggle is still keeping yourself in the work and making it unique. It's tricky for sure.
I felt that when I was working in video games, and they were almost always very realistic, and we got very good at copying realistic objects, or like looking at photographs and determining how they looked. And it eventually got to the point where there wasn't much challenge in creating the object. Yeah. It was more in just telling the story of the textures that you used on the object to say like, okay, this is a gas can, boring, but this is a gas can that's been through 30 years of a city where no one's been living in it, and there's acid rain, and all of a sudden it's like you can tell this little story, but that's not that fulfilling. There's some creativity, and you can do some research there, but then you want to go home and do anything but realistic stuff. You just want to do off the wall, like, oh, I'm going to look at fractals today and just play with these, because it's so far removed. And so I definitely feel what you're saying with the difference between the two of them.
That's a good point. Actually, some of the most loose, energetic work I'll do is after doing, let's say, like turnarounds all day.
Yep.
Because you just kind of have this, like, it's like a kid and I am one of those kids. It's like a kid with ADD. You just want to like, stop reading your textbook and like sketch and like go crazy and stuff. And it's like you have to be constrained at work sometimes, and then you just want to kind of go crazy because, I mean, you can do whatever you want to do on your own time. That's the beauty of your own time.
To explain to anyone listening that doesn't know what turnarounds are, and you can correct me because I've never done one. But turnarounds when you have a character design and then you want to see how they look like from all different angles. So you actually draw different frames of animation. I don't know how many you would actually draw, but so the character would just appear to turn around in place, and you could go to YouTube and type like Lion King turnaround or something, and I'm sure somebody's done one.
Like, it's as much as I'm talking about like this loose, sketchy style, like I've had to do them. Everyone should learn that, like learn the fundamentals. It never hurts to know. But yeah, turnaround is just like, depending on what the client wants or whatever, it could be like a front view, a side view, a 3/4 view, which is kind of slightly turned, but not a complete side view. And then like a back view, maybe even a back 3/4 view. I know it sounds crazy, but there's a lot of methods and kind of shortcuts and almost formulas behind it. Still a lot of cheats in 2D. Like it'll never be a perfect representation. It's really good. It's another way of being able to explain your designs to other people, because like we all kind of understand our drawings, but other people don't. And sometimes the turnaround's a great way to do it. There's different ways to do it.
I have something more, something none of your dry as dust professors and routine-ridden doctors have. Love, devotion, passion.
I'm just looking at these different pictures while we're talking here. So I'm initially, of course, very attracted to the looseness of it and the energy. On the next level, it's the color. There's a watercolor feeling to things, but I feel like they're all done digitally still. But what's your thought behind your coloring process? And we don't usually get this deep into technical details on the podcast, but I just feel like cool. I want to know how you do this. Like I want to fire up Photoshop once we get off this and just like sketch around and play with some stuff, because I'm feeling genuinely inspired here looking at your work.
Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate that. Here's kind of the same answer, but I'll try to get into it more. But basically, like I also try to explore a lot with color. Like, again, I guess I'm maybe the type of person that gets bored doing the same thing more than a few times. So I want to try to approach each coloring differently. And everything on my portfolio page is most likely done in Photoshop. And, there's different brush sets you can get, like Kyle T. Webster, watercolor brushes and like mixed media brushes or inking brushes. I'd recommend those, but I know like a lot of young artists get caught up on like, what's the perfect brush to use? And it doesn't matter. You can draw with a crayon, you can draw with whatever. But there are some great brushes out there on Photoshop that you could play around with. I mean, I know great artists that just use like the default brushes, so that kind of doesn't matter. But yeah, my coloring is just selfishly like, what do I feel like doing? And a lot of times I don't feel like rendering super realistic or fully formed image, like planes and everything. Like, again, I can do that, and I do have to do that from time to time. And maybe sometimes at home I do feel like kind of like fleshing it out more. A lot of these sketches are drawn on downtime, or maybe at a lunch break, or after work just ends and I'm like, I just kind of want to spend 20 minutes. A lot of these are actually done fairly quickly. I don't know if that makes me seem lazy or whatever, but it's kind of like the thing where it's like, I need to take a break for like, 20 minutes. So instead of surfing the web or, doing whatever, like I'll try to get some ideas out of my head. And I've kind of figured out different ways to do things very quickly. You might not think it was done in 15, 20 minutes, but that's what I have to do because I don't want to dilly-dally too much from work, you know what I mean? So yeah, a lot of stuff is just done super quick. So it's me just kind of fussing about in Photoshop. I mean, that's the beauty of Photoshop. There's no wrong way to do things, and there's 5,000 ways to do the same thing. Go in there and get your hands dirty and just play around. I mean, every day I try something new and I'm learning something new, and that's the beauty of it.
Would you say that you're a really confident person? I feel like your answers to this is like, just do it. Just have some fun. Of course, that is the answer. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's a lot of people who say like, of course it's easy for you, but for me, it's different.
I try to be confident in that, like, when I do sit down to draw, whether it's taking 20 minutes, whether it's starting a new project, I want to have confidence enough to know or to set up a way for me to be good at it and complete it. But I still don't know every time I start to draw, like, what's going to happen. Is it going to be good or bad? I have enough confidence to hope that it'll be good. Well, you were just talking about working out before, and I know this is like kind of a tired cliche, but drawing is a lot like working out. Like, just sit down and decide, I'm going to, bench press 300 pounds. You have to work it up from like the bar to putting some weights on to gradually increasing it, to take a jump back to art. Like, that's one of the things with style. A lot of people see a style from someone that they like and they want to take that person's style. But what's behind that person's style is years and years of tinkering and playing with it and knowing fundamentals and basics. And if you look at someone's work that's super stylized, if you were to do like a construction drawing over it, everything is there. Like, it might be the most simple style, right? And they might just bang it out really quick, but there's like years of knowledge underneath it. Like, I've worked with some people where I'm like, man, like, oh, like, it's so simple. It's like, 2 lines to describe the face. And then you try to do it and you just can't get anywhere near it. But then when you go in and figure it out, like, all like the anatomy is there. And like, but then they've distilled it down into 2 lines, and it's pretty daunting. That's one of those things that'll make you lose confidence fast, because it's like, oh boy, I got a ways to go.
I think it, I breathe it. Look out at the rain. Where anybody sees only a drop of water rolling down the window, I see a universe of beings animated with all the passions common to physical life.
Earlier, you mentioned that you were self-taught. Was this the whole way through?
I graduated with a toy design degree.
Okay.
From FIT in New York. Didn't set out to be a toy designer, but it kind of seemed like this is something I can do for a living. I could draw for a living and make money. Mm-hmm. Every artist's dream, pretty much. Turned out I didn't really dig it a lot. In school, even like in my second year of the program, it was a 2-year program. I think it was my second year, started like seeing all these, art of books and, character design, blogspot, like all these different sites, and like just getting really exposed to this art. And that's when I was like, oh man, they talk about inspiration. Like, I saw this work and I'm like, this is what I want to do. Like, I got to work my tail off to get there. And that's what I did.
Was the toy design, was that more like sculpture based? So you then had sort of like a foundation of art. And just to explain where I'm going with this line of questioning, there's great schools out there, and if you can get in, it can be really awesome, because often you'll find that there's like 4 or 5 rock stars and they just all push each other to these new heights, and they all rise very quickly. There's a lot of schools that aren't great, and I feel like that's the majority of schools, and that you can learn this stuff on your own. It might be a little bit more difficult, but I was just curious how it looked.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's kind of like you get out of it what you put into it. If you have great teachers, that's a plus. You'll learn from them. They'll push you. But I don't know if every school has great teachers. I went to a cheap school. The reason I went there is it was a state university of New York, so it was a lot cheaper for me. Keeping that in mind, I'm most likely going to be teaching at a very expensive art school soon. I didn't go to an expensive art school. And I'm the only person I've ever met from FIT in animation. And most people do come from either like, a Cal Arts or
Art Institute, and Ringling gets mentioned a lot.
Art Academy.
Yeah. Oh, Art Academy. I worked with some awesome artists from Art Academy.
Yeah, I mean,
props to those guys. They've had some awesome teachers.
Absolutely. So it's kind of a crapshoot, like maybe you'll get great teachers, and maybe you're at the right place in your life. You're going to take it super seriously and really put in everything and get everything out of it that you can, or maybe not. I don't know. What I did when I really knew I wanted to do character design is I looked up classes around me, and I was in New York at the time. There wasn't a ton. Like,
what?
Yeah.
That blows my mind. I feel like New York is an art capital. There's several in the world, but New York has got to be one of them.
It's a lot of commercial houses.
Oh yeah,
and they're great. They do fun work, but it's hard to make a living. And then there's Blue Sky Studios, but that's up in Connecticut. It was pretty depressing to find that out when I realized, this is what I want to do. And then you start looking around and you're like, there's just not that many opportunities for me. But I made the best out of it. But yeah, like I said, then I started looking around, and there's this guy named Rick Lacey. Shout outs to Rick Lacey, who did a character design class. He did some work on Venture Brothers. Like, he helped design the characters for that. And he was just running like a small class out of this comic book shop in Brooklyn. And I took the class twice. I liked it so much, and he was a really good teacher. So like any knowledge I could get, especially in an area that I wasn't familiar with, I just tried to soak it in. yeah, I mean, I wanted to learn so badly that I really absorbed the knowledge.
My takeaway here for the listeners is, if you know that you want to do this and you want to move into art being as your career, it's like, it doesn't really matter what the step is. Like for you, you're in an art related program doing toy design, but what you found out that wasn't what you wanted to do. So then through that process, you did find out what you did actually want to do. Yeah. And then, there wasn't a lot of schools around. So you hunted, and then you found this little comic book shop where there was a really good instructor, and then you took that class. In fact, you took it twice, and then you looked online, and then you found the next person that you were going to learn from, and then you went and learned from them. So wherever you're at, if you know what you want to do, and I've talked to a lot of people recently that want to do graphic novels, it's just like, just start freaking doing it, and then find somebody who's done it, who's teaching this stuff, or maybe they're not even teaching, maybe they've just done it, and you can email them and say like, hey, I'm working on my graphic novel, I just finished 30 pages of it and I'm stuck. But don't go to these people with nothing in hand. You got to put in the work. You got to show that you want this. Yeah. And the way that you show that you want it is by actually doing something, and it's not that hard to start. You just pick up your pencil and you start putting marks on the page. Yep. And then everything starts flowing from there. We got to wrap this up. I'm still so inspired by your work.
Thank you.
Any parting words that you can give to people? Because I feel that people make art into like this big monster that they got to slay, and they're like, I can't put my stuff online because it's not good enough. I don't know how to really render metal, so I can't draw a spaceship. Whatever it is, it's like it's all in your head. And I feel that looking at your work, it's very accessible. It's something you could look at and be like, hey, maybe I can't do it at the level that you're doing it, but I feel inspired. It's something I could do, and I could start right now, and I could, look, I've got a character done. It only took me, 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And yeah, it's not amazing, but I did something and I feel good about it.
Yes.
Instead of like feeling caught up.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. What you were just talking about reminded me of a quote. I think it goes like, if you want something bad enough, you're doomed to succeed.
Oh, I love it.
Which means like, if you really want it, you're going to get it, but it's going to be a pretty torturous route there, a lot of work, a lot of hours. And I do believe that, if you really work at it, you will get there. Some people's routes are quicker. Some people's routes are much, much longer, but just go get it.
I can't help but picture a meme with Dr. Doom in this quote,
There's a book by Walt Stanchfield, Drawn to Life. Highly, highly, highly recommend those books, by the way. 2 of them in the series, but he brings up a lot of quotes like that, and I think I got it from there. All
right, so if you want it bad enough, you're doomed to succeed.
Yeah,
we'll find the source, and we'll put it in the show notes. So we'll attribute it to if it was somebody else, we'll track them down and make sure that credit is given where it's due. Thank you so much, Jesse. Once again, we'll have show notes for this at pencilkings.com/Jesse Aclin. That's JESSE-ACLIN, and we'll have links to Jesse's site, some examples of his artwork, and yeah, everything will be there. So thank you so much, Jesse, for waking up early, hopping on the podcast. I hope we have a beautiful, sunny California day. I'm jealous.
Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
All right, take care.
Take care, man.
Scope demands patience, skill, years of practice.
You talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.
If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could hit the 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio and leave us a little comment about what you thought about this.